heart is racing. When I first heard this theme, I was feeling pretty perverted myself. I was going to get up here and tell you about Amber Naren in 4th grade. I was going to tell you how we spent nights together, and the nights would begin with us speed reading through Bible verses, followed by watching Ghost, the whole thing, every time, followed by Michael Jackson music videos on VH1, like with the pop-ups, so you knew all the juicy details, and then like making out and humping all night. It was so great. It was like the most exciting sexual experiences of my life, and we had our clothes on the whole time. But then I had a new first last week. I've swum in all sorts of natural bodies of water, but I've never gone down a sliding rock. So last Monday, my friend and I decided to go hiking out past Brevard, drove to Sapphire, and to protect the anonymity of the people in the story, I'm going to change the person's name to Marty and the dog's name to Gray. So we get in the car, we start out by like eating some chocolate cake for energy. And we put Gray in the car, and on the way there we decide, well, we definitely need some beer, because like we're hiking for hours and shit. So we gotta be drunk, or at least buzzed. So we get like some sweet water. And we get back in the car, and we're 5 miles away. So we're drinking in the car on the way there, and putting more beer in our water bottle, just to make sure we're good. Because driving is really exhausting. We've burned off all of that buzz. So we get there, and we're like, okay, we've got like 4 hours to hike and drink and have fun with the dog. So we start hiking, and we're drinking, and we're having fun with the dog. And after about, 45 minutes, we've taken pictures, and I've taken little videos of the waterfall and the mist, and like my glasses have gotten all misty because like the water is flying up, and like we're standing on the other side of the fence, and I'm like, oh, waterfall, I love you. You look so cool and crisp and just beautiful, and we live in Asheville, and how amazing. And we keep hiking, and on the way to the last part of our hike, there's like a family of 4 people who are coming toward us wearing bathing suits. And I'm like, oh hell no, I know that water is cold as hell. I'm not getting in that, what are they doing? And Marty is like, oh, you guys went down the sliding rock. And they're like, yeah, it was great, it was fine. And I'm like, what? No, sliding rock in the river? This river is fast. This current is tough. I can't do that. And before we started hiking, this person, Marty, had talked about snakes. And I don't mind land snakes. Like the ones that I can run away from. But I'm not dealing with the current and shit. But water snakes are a totally different story. And she's like, oh yeah, last time I went on a hike, we like set this intention. We're gonna see a snake. We're gonna see a moccasin or whatever, rattlesnake, I don't know. So I was like, oh, that's totally awesome. And inside I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Please don't set me out of intention this time, because I can't stand snakes. And we never mentioned it again. Just like, okay, fine. And what I didn't tell her was that there was this story when I was a kid. Grew up in this town called Youngsville for the first part of my childhood. Youngsville, North Carolina is right next to Bunn, kind of near Wake Forest, like 45 minutes from Raleigh, a really small town. And there was this lake we'd always go to, and then one summer my mom wouldn't let me go there anymore because supposedly there had been this like adolescent, I don't know, like 15 or something, swimming across the lake, and halfway to the other side was overcome by snakes and pulled under into the murky bottom of this horrifying lake and killed. And I'm kind of gullible, so I believed it. And I was like, oh God, I'm just gonna go where I can stand, and that's fine with me. And I like had this memory, and we lived right by a creek where I would always sit like watching these, murky fish and whatever. And I would see snakes occasionally and didn't really have any fear until I heard about the story. So when we started hiking and she was talking about snakes, I was like, oh God, I don't want to get like pulled under, I mean, I'm already like feel pulled under like every day for a million different reasons. I don't want to get pulled under. I mean, this is a hike. So we pass these people in the bathing suits, and we end up at the crest of this sliding rock. And Marty is like, man, I'm getting a little bit older, like, it's not as easy to just go down sliding rocks anymore and like not be scared that I'm gonna get hurt. And I was thinking, well, if this badass is nervous, I got the camera, I'm good. I'm not doing anything. Well, she starts to take off her clothes, and I'm like, Marty, you're a teacher. We are on state property. What the hell are you thinking? You're gonna be a sex offender. Right? You're on public property and you take your clothes off and you're a sex offender. Well, she's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, really? I don't want to be a sex offender. I want to be able to go run in public parks and like hike again. So we decided that it was best to leave like our sports bras on. And at this point, I'm still not getting in. It's like 5 o'clock and it's freezing in the water and the current is actually pretty fast, and she mentions that. And again, I'm like, God, she's a badass. Like, if she thinks the current is fast, it's probably really fast. So she starts to get in the water. We've tied the dog up, who's been great, lovely, wasn't trying to drink any of our beer, it was perfect. So she starts to take her clothes off and like starts walking out to the middle, and she's nervous. I'm like, oh shit. And well, okay, I already decided I'm not going, because I'm definitely not going now. But she makes it to the middle, and so you have to walk like to this halfway point, and then you sit down and it just takes you, and you end up in this pool. And there are these boulders and these floating logs where snakes love to be. You know, I mean, I was taught that you don't go near piles of wood because there's gonna be snakes in them and you don't wanna get bit. So I'm like, okay, if she just like goes in and gets into this pool of water and just swims to this edge, she'll be fine. So she does that, and before she even sits down to get, you know, swept away, I'm taking my clothes off. I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna get the courage to do this again, and I'm just gonna do it. So I'm like, undressing and taking the video, and she's going down, and then I don't see her. I'm like, oh my God, what happened? What did I miss? And she ends up, of course, like swimming around this boulder and like waving, and she's fine, and she's happy, and she's climbing back up, and I'm like, okay, she's lived, you know, she's alive, there were no snakes. So I'm undressed now, and I'm like, okay, my video won't work on my camera though, and I have to get a video of this because it's probably the only time I'll ever do it. But I was fine with it. The video didn't work. You know, fucking Droid X. Don't get one of those. They are fucked up. Get the iPhone. So anyway, it's not working. I'm getting undressed, and I'm starting to walk across to the middle point of the river. And things are moving underneath my feet, like the rocks. You know, I'm walking away, and I'm looking back at Marty, and I'm going, and then I turn back around, and I'm like, oh my God, these rocks underneath my feet are moving, and I'm gonna fall, and I'm not gonna be in the right position, so I'm gonna get turned around, and I'm gonna go head first, and clearly I'm gonna hit my head and be taken under by snakes. So I wanna make sure that I'm facing like the perfect angle. So my legs are just gonna go straight down, I'm just gonna plug my nose and just go in the water and be fine. So I finally make it to that halfway point, and I finally get ready to sit down, and I'm like, God, I really don't know if I can even sit. This current is so fast, I think it was faster than it was 2 minutes ago. I can't do it. But now I kind of feel like I can't turn back because I don't think I can. It's too wobbly. So I sit down in the perfect position, and then my body just starts turning. I'm like, oh shit. So I kind of like go off the edge sideways, and I'm like, you know, and I make it. Like I go into the water and I come back up, and suddenly I'm like, I'm a pretty good swimmer. I'm like, oh my God, this is how people drown. They get nervous, and like there's snakes, and I see the boulder that Marty had swum around, and I'm like, okay, I just gotta make it to that boulder. Then I get to the boulder, and I'm like, oh, there's like moss on it, and there's rocks, and there's these like sticks and parts of trees, and I can't feel anything underneath my feet, but I'm sure there's like snakes, like right there, right underneath my feet. And I'm like, so I'm trying to keep my legs really close to me while I'm treading water, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm 4 feet from the fucking shore, and I'm gonna die. Like, I'm gonna die worrying about something that doesn't exist, and this is how people drown. in Sapphire, North Carolina, and I'm gonna die. So I finally make it like kind of around the boulder, and I'm almost crying. I'm like, my chest is heaving, and I'm nervous, and I'm scared, but I fucking just went in on sliding rocks, so I'm kind of feeling badass too. But then I don't have anything to hold on to. There's all these like pieces of trees, and I'm grabbing at them, and Marty is laughing because I'm like trying to float with it, and then I'm thinking, well, there's probably a snake underneath it. I mean, it's like a pile of trees. So finally, I make it to this like very extremely angled rock, and I think, okay, I took a rock climbing class in 4th grade after hanging out with Amber all year. I can do this. And Marty is like, you need to go to the edge, and I'm just like, I'm gonna make it up here, and I get out of the water, and I lay on my back, and I'm just like, and then finally I make it back to the spot where we're at, and at this point we're like, well, fuck clothes, they are wet, so we practically, not quite, but we practically get naked. What do you know? After I finally catch my breath, and I've survived the nest of snakes, and the fast current, and the unstable ground, but a fucking family starts to walk by us, and like our breasts are totally exposed. We're just like lying back, and I'm like, oh my god, sex offender. We're gonna be sex offenders. We can never do this again. And we just like lean forward, and she's like, what the fuck? We should just take our shirts off anyway. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, but I want to be a freaking sex offender. So this family like goes on, and we're both really relieved. And finally, like 45 minutes later, we get our clothes back on, and we start to leave. And as far as we know, this family is completely gone. Well, don't you know, there were some fucking peeping Toms. Because we start to walk down the trail, and we see them sitting in this semi-hidden area that really only looks out on the spot where we were totally naked. And they're like hanging out. Like 2 8th grade boys and their mom and dad. And we are just mortified. Well, I am. I think she was. And so we just start like going really fast and trying to get out of there because all I can see are park rangers and lawyers and fucking snakes. And we survived. So that was the sliding rock. Thank you.